Okay, hello everyone, and welcome to Stop Repeating Yourself, Reuse and Get Cleaned Up. Presenting today is Brian Trombley. Brian Trombley has over 30 years' experience in helping clients implement content-oriented processes and technologies for all aspects of publishing across a wide range of industry verticals. An early practitioner of structured content methodologies, Mr. Trombley was at the forefront of the SGML and XML revolutions and has helped clients successfully manage, change, and convert and leverage content for maximum business value. Brian, you can go ahead and take it right away.
Hey, thanks, Vincent. I really appreciate that introduction. And good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. I know we had quite a few folks sign up from different time zones and even different continents. So I think we've got folks in the Far East, across the United States, and in Europe. I'm very excited to have this opportunity to present to you today, and I hope that you find this session very useful. Today we're going to talk about content reuse and, more importantly, the analysis that needs to take place in order to get to a point where you're maximizing your content reuse. First, let me just spend a moment introducing you to Data Conversion Laboratory. Some of you know DCL. From past experience or talking with us, and some of you are new to DCL. We've been providing content conversion and more recently XML-related services for over 30 years, almost 32 years at this point, and we've successfully converted well over a billion pages at this point. We are a privately held, woman-owned small business headquartered in New York City, and our staff includes dedicated teams focused on various types of industries and industry-specific content and the requirements associated with those specific types of conversion efforts. We have expertise in very large and very complex conversion projects, as well as more run-of-the-mill conversion projects, smaller ones, involving small sets of content for a product or a few products, but then getting into the large ones where we may have millions of pages to convert to industry standard DTDs and other data models. We have substantial experience in managing multiple vendors for large-scale projects, and we have automated tracking and reporting tools that we use not only to communicate with our partners that work with us on some of these conversions, but also giving our clients a window into the process so they can see what is scheduled and where in the process various bits of their content are. We have some pretty sophisticated tools. Having been in business for over 30 years, we've developed a lot of internally used software processes, and many of those focus on workflow and both automated QA processes to complement our human quality control steps that we use to guarantee the levels of accuracy that we achieve. So what we're going to do is take a look sort of at the who, what, when, where, why, and how of content reuse and content reuse analysis. Next slide, Vincent. So we're going to briefly go through a number of slides. Eventually we'll get to a demonstration of DCL's Harmonizer reuse analysis tool. But we'll take a little bit of time and we'll talk about what is content reuse, why is it important, who benefits from content reuse, where is it being done, and some examples of the analysis that helps organizations get there. We'll talk a little bit about when we should do reuse analysis, and of course, how do we get to content reuse, and that will be the demonstration of our Harmonizer service offering. Vincent, next slide, please. So what is content reuse? Our good friend, and probably your good friend if you've been in this space for a while, Anne Rockley, she defines content reuse in very simple terms. She says content reuse is the practice of using existing content components to develop new documents. And you know, that's been the case for quite a few years. Anne said that back in, I think it was in 2002, and she used the word documents, but it's really components to develop new information that's delivered. It might be documents, it might be information delivered to a website, it might be information delivered to an Android device or an iPhone, or to some sort of e-reader device. Most organizations already, reuse content in some fashion. The old way was copy and paste, and that worked well until the content and everywhere it appeared needed to be updated. And then it became time-consuming to find every piece of the content that had been copied and reused and change it. And not only was that, or is that time-consuming if you're still doing it that way, but some occurrences are typically missed. That results in inconsistencies and inaccuracies. And in addition, over time, those inconsistencies tend to layer themselves until the original inconsistencies become buried, and you really end up with two completely different content sources. Okay? Early reuse focused on sections and paragraphs and sentences or even words. So you may be in an older XML model. Maybe you're using DocBook or some variant of DocBook, and you have reuse opportunities in those models, and it's worked very well for some folks. But in order to get maximum reuse opportunity, folks are looking at more current architectures where reuse was baked into the development of those information architectures. And two that come to mind, obviously, DITA, which has been around for some time, but is really just over the last 4 years or so, and really probably more so in the last 2 or 3 years, is gaining wide acceptance as organizations migrate from either earlier XML models or from common authoring tools like FrameMaker, whether it's unstructured or structured, to a reuse model using DITA. And of course, S1000D is an example of a baked-in model where reuse is baked in for the aviation and aerospace industry. So with that, let's move on to the next slide and talk a little bit about why content use is important. And it is very important for a number of reasons, and I think 4 really good reasons are increased consistency, which is important in terms of your messaging and your communication to your customers or your business partners. Reuse really supports well the reduced development and maintenance costs of sets of content or information. Rapid reconfiguration is another important factor to consider in the whole reuse equation as you're looking to justify the cost of moving to content reuse. And that rapid reconfiguration, can be, personalized documents and documentation to segments of your customer base, or even to individual customers that might have some very specific aspects to the product that they purchased for you, and you need to specialize or personalize the information that's delivered to them. And that could be in print, it could be online via the web, or it could be pushed out to various mobile devices. One of the big benefits of reuse for large global organizations that produce documentation in many languages, and we have clients that produce in well over 20 languages, the big saver for them is in translation. Being able to translate small bits of information once and reuse that information across any number of delivery channels of documents or bits of information that are being pushed out to customers is huge. And while content reuse for some organizations isn't real expensive. For very large global organizations, it can be a millions of dollar investment. And those organizations that have those big budgets to do it usually have an ROI, if they're doing a lot of translation, usually have an ROI that says, we're going to pay for this multi-million-dollar investment in less than a year. So, you know, getting the bang for your buck in translation is huge. Okay. Next slide, Vincent. So who benefits from content reuse? It's really a two-way street. Obviously, your customers benefit from content reuse. They have a better user experience, and that comes from things like the consistency of your documentation, and it also comes from you know, that ability to sort of personalize the content and tailor the content to specific customer sets or individual customers. Your business benefits a couple of ways. Top line, time to market. You know, you really shouldn't be releasing a new product or a new rev of a product without the documentation being done, and the documentation tends to be the last thing that gets completed. Being able to complete that documentation as quickly as possible when the product's ready to release gives you a time to market advantage that can have significant impact on your top line revenue. And on the bottom line, the efficiency gain through creation and maintenance and translation savings hit the bottom line pretty heavily. I mean, any savings you get there goes straight to the bottom line, pure profit. Next slide, please. So what we're going to do now is look at some examples across a number of different industry types, and you know, see what, when they did some initial test analysis, what they found. Next slide, please. So this is an example from a global leader in transportation, e-commerce, and business services. And before I jump into the numbers here, these two bits here, the results table and the pie chart, those you will see throughout all of the other examples I'm going to show you. Those are part of the initial screen that you will see when you have a report prepared, harmonizing your content. It's an HTML-based report that has an initial screen as well as some other screens that you can navigate back and forth through. So in this case, we have this organization had us prepare an analysis of a small set of content. That content, when we boiled it down, was 4,918 paragraphs. And of those, and I'll go into detail a little bit later about what each one of these things mean: unique, non-unique, base paragraphs, exact matches, close matches, etc. I'll go through that when we get to the actual demo. But what we want to focus on here is, in this instance, at a paragraph level, they had exact matches of 19.34% and close matches of 33.16%, showing a potentially reusable situation of just over 52%. Now, that the reality is that their reuse percentage will fall somewhere between 19.34% and 52.50%. And you'll see when we get into the demonstration how Harmonizer allows you to make those determinations fairly easily and fairly quickly. Next slide, please. Here's another company. This company is involved in wireless and wired communication technology. Again, we ran a small test for them, 4,159 paragraphs. Exact match is 23.08%, close match is 25.34%, potential for up to 48.43% reuse. Also, I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that down at the bottom you see different sequences, 1,039. Sequences are when we identify 2 or more consecutive paragraphs that, that either have exact matches or close matches. So while the raw analysis is at paragraph level, it identifies larger chunks of content that are candidates for reuse as well. Next slide, please. Another organization, a global medical device manufacturer with documentation that's help files that are loaded onto their medical devices. This was an analysis of some robo-help files prior to conversion to DITA. Total paragraphs analyzed 11,552. We found 13.15% exact matches and 20.84% close matches, giving us just shy of 34% in terms of potential reuse opportunity. Next slide. I think I've got a couple of more here. Here's a global leader in data storage systems with a big translation cost. And this was a set of FrameMaker documents for one product. 5,555 paragraphs was what it boiled down to. Exact matches 14.74, close matches 18.42, potentially reusable paragraphs 33.16. And next one. Yeah, so a couple more. Company involved in media and broadcast technology products. Exact matches 11.68%, close matches 13.5%, potential reuse opportunity of just over 25%. And the last one, next slide, please. And this was a major pharmaceutical company. This was interesting because you know, there's a number of heavily regulated industries. You know, I talked about the medical device manufacturer previously. This one's a pharmaceutical company. Obviously, there's a lot of information that gets submitted to the Food and Drug Administration prior to products being released. And even after they're approved, there's a process they go through for labeling. And there's a lot of paperwork and documentation and reports that are leveraged in the process to come up with the final labels. And those documents need to be submitted to the FDA. In this case, we had a set of documents that totaled 878 paragraphs. We found exact matches of 12.98%, close matches of 11.62%, with a potential for 24.60% reuse. Now, when we get into the Harmonizer demonstration, you'll see that when we find close matches, sometimes the close matches aren't because we use this word or that word, but the close matches might also be because we had a typographical error or extraneous space bands, or we had a standard term or abbreviation in the base paragraph and it wasn't put in the same way in subsequent paragraphs. So Harmonizer will help you not only identify the reuse opportunity, but point out potential errors in the content, allow you to clean that up. Okay. The other thing that was interesting in this was there was a bit of information that was critical to a number of documents, and that information appeared initially in a base paragraph and then in a couple of other documents, and as a close match in another document where they had put a placeholder in for that information, but they never actually went in and put the information in. And that ended up getting submitted to the FDA. An obvious mistake on their part, not a critical one, but again, a situation where if content reuse was actually in play, everything would have been fine. The documents would have been accurate and up to date and consistent. So next slide, please, Vincent. So let's talk a little bit about when we should do this content reuse analysis. And it really depends on where you are with your content, but any time is really a good time. I mean, you might be using an older information architecture where you're making use of some reuse capabilities, but maybe not all that you could. Maybe you aren't ready to move to DITA or S1000D. We can analyze your current XML or your current FrameMaker files. Maybe you have some unstructured FrameMaker, you want to go to structured FrameMaker. We can do that analysis, and then you can go in and use that as a guide to clean up your content and make more use of the reuse capabilities of those technologies. Most of the organizations we tend to talk to are planning on a move to something like DITA or S1000D, which, as we said before, reuse is baked into that architecture, and you really owe it to yourself to get a handle on what is my opportunity for reuse and where is that opportunity for reuse, so that I can either do some cleanup beforehand and potentially shrink the volume of content I need to convert, or have a map into the data to, after a conversion, go in and then quickly clean up that content. If you think about a set of data, and you might have 4,000 or 5,000 pages, or you might have 25,000 pages that there's an opportunity for reuse within. If you were to try and figure out what that opportunity is manually, you'd have some of your subject matter experts probably locked in a conference room around a big table for a period of time, which would probably be a pretty large amount of time, where they'd be reading through and analyzing and keeping probably a spreadsheet with, what document, what page, what paragraph, or what section, is our opportunity for reuse. And even with a small set of data, 4,000 pages, it could be weeks and weeks and weeks of human effort to come up with something that would be somewhat accurate, but not as complete and as consistent as a programmatic approach to content reuse analysis. And then just think, if you have tens of thousands of pages, 25, 30,000 pages of documentation, what it would take to get an accurate view into the reuse opportunity. And it's probably, at that level, you're probably talking about having 3 or 4 people working on it, and everybody's going to be working a little bit differently and seeing things a little bit differently. So you're not going to get quite the value out of your investment of time and resource by doing this with a human touch. So you really should look for a way to analyze your reuse opportunity programmatically. Vincent, next slide, please. Okay, so how do we get there? And this is where we're going to give you a quick demo of Harmonizer. I'll take you through it, and we'll have ample time for question and answer at the end. So this sample report is actually up on our website. Vincent, is that blown up a little bit? Can everybody see that? It's a little small. Vincent, is that as big as we can make it, or are we good?
Yeah, that's as big as I can get it for you.
Okay, great. So, okay, I'm taking over now. So I had mentioned that Harmonizer is really it's sort of an HTML-based report. When we run the process, the output from the process is a zip file. And when we deliver that to you, you basically unzip the file. It creates a directory, and in that directory, it puts 6 HTML files and an image. And the image is obviously that pie chart you see there, and the HTML file that's the entry point into the report is a file called rep, R-E-P. So when you double click on the rep file, this is where it takes you. It takes you to this initial screen that shows the results. We had talked about these results earlier when we looked at some examples. And it shows you the pie chart, which represents the metrics in the results table. And then it has 5 additional links to other aspects of the report. So I'm going to spend a bit of time sort of talking you through what you're seeing on the screen and what we mean by certain words, and just so you have a basis of understanding. So total paragraphs, that's pretty obvious. In this set of data, this sample, it was a small set of data. It was 1,070 paragraphs. Unique paragraphs are paragraphs that have been identified to have no exact or close match in the data set. So they're truly unique paragraphs. Non-unique paragraphs we break down into 3 subcategories. So base paragraphs are paragraphs that appear for the first time but are found elsewhere in the data set, either as exact matches or in some close variation. Okay? Exact matches are paragraphs that are exact repeats of paragraphs that appear elsewhere in the data set. Okay? Close matches are paragraphs, and in this case we set the thresholds. Paragraphs that are close matches in this case are paragraphs where either the first 2 words or the last 2 words of the paragraph match, and there are less than 10 overall word differences in the paragraphs. Okay? Necessary paragraphs, that's the sum of the unique and the base paragraphs. So in this case, where we have potentially reusable paragraphs of 50.84%, if we achieved all of that reuse, we would have necessary paragraphs of 49.16%. Potentially, if we were lucky and all the close matches could be made to exact matches, we'd literally shrink this set of content in half and derive the benefit from that in terms of maintenance and updates and translation and all the other things that go along with reuse. So we said necessary paragraphs, unique plus base paragraphs, potentially reusable paragraphs, obviously the sum of the exact and close matches. Different sequences are the number of sequences in the paragraph sequence report. So when we get into the sequence matches report, there are 216 entries in there that are that note that there are 2 or more consecutive paragraphs that are either a close match or an exact match. Okay. Now the fun begins. I'm going to jump down into the paragraph matches report, and it's going to look a little crazy. I'm going to talk you through what you're seeing here. And I apologize, we're hitting our website and then taking that across the GoToMeeting, so there's a bit of a lag time here. At least on my end, there's a bit of a lag time. Okay, so here we go. So this is the paragraph matches report. And what we do for every one of those base paragraphs that that was in that table, we note what document and what line number that base paragraph was. And then in bold, we have the base paragraph. So in this case, this is the safety alert symbol. When you see this symbol on your pump or in this manual, look for one of the following signal words and be alert to the potential for personal injury. Okay? Now, if we look down below, we have 1, 2, 3 instances of a close match of this nature, 2 instances of a close match of this nature, 2 instances of a close match of this nature, and 3 instances of a close match of this nature. So going back up to the bolded paragraph, which is the base paragraph, the next paragraph, the unbolded paragraph, is a composite paragraph indicating all insert or deletion variations on this paragraph appearing anywhere in the document collection. Okay? So the sections that are replaced somewhere in the collection are shown in blue, while the replacement sections are inside the squiggly brackets and appear in red. Okay? So in this instance, the difference was the injury, and it looks like N exclude, some typographic, maybe some extraneous text there. Okay. In this one, the word safety alert symbol appeared as safety-alert, and the word injury at the end had injury and I think that's a full colon there. I can't see this, the text is a little bit small. In this one, in this instance, safety alert symbol was set as safety-alert, and the injury at the end was correct as it was in the upper one. So it sounds like there had been some editing going on, and not everything was caught. So if we look at this harmonized view, this could be rewritten to say this is the safety alert. When you see this symbol on your pump or in this manual, look for one of the following signal words and be alert to the potential for personal injury. So there is some opportunity here to clean up your content and make potentially 10 close matches into 10 exact matches. Okay? So this was one paragraph. You move down. Each paragraph that has a exact or close matches is divided by this horizontal line here. So you move down to the next one. I apologize for the slow scrolling. So, here's one where we found a number of exact matches. So all of these under the exact matches heading are exact, but we still have instances of close matches where we have things like warns about hazards that can or cause serious minor personal injury, death, and or major property damage if ignored. So there's some talk here in these paragraphs that are close about how serious or how minor the injury can be, and is it death or major property damage. So there's probably some reason why these close matches should not be harmonized and made to be exact matches, because we're talking about the severity of certain things. But this gives you, the view into the content so that your subject matter experts can see what can be cleaned up, what can be harmonized into exact matches. Let me just scroll down a bit more. Here's one, the label notice indicates special instructions which are important but not related to hazards. And the close match, it's an exact match 3 times. The close match, the word notice indicates special instructions which are important but not related to hazards. So to me, that that means, hey, we can choose one or the other. It could be label or it could be word for all 7. And now we've just gotten rid of 3 close matches, and we've reused this content 4 additional times. Okay? I'm going to scroll down to the end because there's some other stuff I sort of tucked into this report that shows some of the other benefits of Harmonizer, aside from finding the reuse opportunity. And bear with us while this scrolls. It's going to take a minute because I'm remote and I'm driving the keyboard against a website that's remote for me, and we're doing it over okay. So here's an example where we found a close match, and the close match is because of a misspelling, immediately spelled incorrectly. So again, opportunity to find inconsistencies or wrong content. Here we say must be installed at the 6 o'clock position with bolts. Here's 6 o'clock with a space between it, and 6 o'clock with no space between it, and position with bolts or the bolt facing monitors. So again, some subject matter expertise is required here to go in and look at this and see what's right, what's wrong, what needs cleanup, and what can be made to be exact matches. Okay. I'm going to back out of this report now, and this is the primary report that you're interested in, because this shows you quite handily where the reuse opportunities are, and gives you some contextualization around them. Okay. Quickly, we'll go into the sequence matches report. So this report, as soon as it comes up on the screen, lists all paragraph sequences. That's 2 or more paragraphs consecutively where the paragraphs were found to be close or exact matches. And this report lists the names of the files in which the matches were found and shows you the first few words of each paragraph in the sequence. So for instance, in this source file at line 90, we found 6 paragraphs in sequence that identically match this file and this file at these line numbers respectively. So again, an opportunity to define a higher level of reusable content to be used in whatever your information architecture is. Here's one where we found 5 paragraphs that matches 5 paragraphs in another document. There's some significant ones. Scroll down a little bit. Sometimes we'll see 8 or 9 paragraphs that are used in 20 places, and sorry for the delay in the screen refresh. So here's a large chunk, 14 paragraphs found in 2 places. But sometimes, if you want, you can go to our website and you can access this this sample report. You can sort of navigate it yourself at your leisure, and if you have potential questions that we don't answer here today, or if you don't have time to think about the questions and look at the sample report later and come back to us with questions, we can sit with you and go through that. 3 more reports here. The report information is simply a report that lists the name of the job, the date it was run, the difference threshold that we set. Remember, we said close matches have to either have first 2 or last 2 words of the paragraph identical and less than, in this case, 10 word differences, so 9 or less word differences. And then this is the list of files that were put into the Harmonizer process. Excuse me. The document thumbnail is the next one we're going to look at. And what we do when we take your input files, and the input files can be virtually any text-based document format, with the exception of a PDF normal or a text-based PDF, because that has a lot of extraneous page information and other stuff and doesn't play well with Harmonizer. So, you know, typically inputs are XML, SGML, HTML, or FrameMaker files, or Microsoft Word files, or even you know, InDesign, Quark Express, even some old Interleaf files that might be hanging around, or even PageMaker files that might be hanging around. Those files that are not XML, SGML, or HTML, we normalize down to a file format, an internal file format that we use. So this document thumbnail lists all the paragraphs down on a document-by-document basis. So we have this document number, and here's where all the paragraphs that were found as either exact or close matches appear. Okay? So if your input was XML or SGML or HTML, these line numbers would be the exact location within your set of data. If it's not one of those 3 formats, then these line numbers are really into our normalized version of your data. However, you do see you know, good information here, and you see it sort of in context. Okay. Let me just go back. And then lastly, a report on unique paragraphs, which is simply you know, a list of all paragraphs for which no exact matches or close matches were found within the document set or data set that was analyzed. So that is the file name, the line number, and the first bits of the paragraph. Or I think these are actually the full paragraphs. Okay. So with that, we're right on about 45 minutes. We do have some time for Q&A, and you know, more than happy to follow up with any of you individually if you have specific questions, or if you know, you think about this over the weekend and next week you realize that you didn't ask a question. We're more than happy to get on the phone with you, or get on a go-to-meeting and go through this again. So with that, Vincent, let's open it up for questions, and hopefully they're questions I can answer.
Okay, you can use the panel in the GoToWebinar control panel under the questions section and submit any questions that way.
No questions?
Okay, we're starting to get some now.
Okay. Do I see, Vincent, can I see the questions on my screen?
1 second.
What do I have to hit?
If you drag out the questions panel, you
Yep,
can stretch it
I
out.
see it now. But it's slow to refresh. I can't see the question. Can you, Vincent, can you read me that first question? I've got something over the question itself. So.
Okay. The first question is the dreaded question: what kind of cost?
Well, it depends on the amount of content that you have to analyze, but in the scheme of things, it's incredibly cost effective versus the amount of manpower you would have to, and the cost of that manpower and the time that you would have to spend getting anywhere close to what Harmonizer can do. So we tend to talk on a customer by customer basis, but you're talking at the high end around $5,000 if you're looking at 25,000 pages of content, down to lower thousands of dollars if you're talking about smaller sets of data. Typically, if a client gives us their data to analyze, we usually have it back to them in 3 or 4 days. 3 is pretty normal. And then what we do is we, someone, could be myself, could be somebody else, will spend some time taking the client and their subject matter experts through the report so they understand, what they're seeing, how to interpret it, and how to make best use of it in really going through and making those decisions on what is a real opportunity for reuse, and then mapping out a plan to get there.
The follow-up to that.
So if anyone has specific pricing questions, if you can email me what type of files and how many pages you have, I can respond back with pricing for that.
The follow-up to that is, how do the files get processed? Are they sending them to us, and what about the confidentiality of those files?
Yeah. So in every instance with our customers, one of the first things we do is sign a mutual non-disclosure agreement. So we are bound by non-disclosure, and you are bound by non-disclosure if we disclose any proprietary information to you. So that's the first thing that usually happens, and then we typically set up an FTP site on our server for you to upload the files to. We'll then download them, process them, and put the Harmonizer report back on the FTP site and send you an email when it's ready. And then we'll set a time for someone to walk you through the report. And again, that's a fairly quick process, 3-4 days to get that all done. Whether it's 2,000 pages or 25,000 pages.
Harmonizer has Word input, but what about Word files that use only the normal style?
We don't look at style. It looks at words and character and paragraph marks. So style, meaning formatting and layout, it doesn't really play into this at all.
Okay.
Is that answering the question, or did I not understand the question? If you could ask the.
Yes.
Okay. Good. All right. Okay.
Once you've received the Harmonizer report, what steps would you take to implement the implied recommendations?
Well, so it really depends on what your goals are. A lot of folks will. They may be planning and thinking about a move to DITA, and they may be in a budgeting stage, and they're going to have to ask finance for dollars to not only analyze their data, but convert their data, and new tools to use. Okay, let's say you're in FrameMaker and you end up going into DITA. You're probably going to use something like Oxygen or XMetal or Arbortext Editor, and you're probably going to implement some level of component content management system. And there's a number of them that have been around for a long time, and there's some nice new ones, and the prices for those range all over the place. So you're going to be building some sort of budget, and the CFO is going to say, well, why are we doing this? And you're going to be able to say, because we had our content analyzed, and here's the opportunity for reuse. And if we can achieve, something in this range of reuse, here's what we project our savings to be. Okay, so in early planning, it's a good idea to do it. If you're already making that move to data and you're scratching your head as to, well, we're going to get there, but are we going to be able to maximize our reuse, because it'll take us weeks and weeks, if not months, to sit down and analyze our content. It's a good idea to have Harmonizer run through and do what would take weeks or months in a matter of hours or days, and be more accurate than you could drive. And if you've already made the move to data, and you're making use of reuse part of your your process now, you may want to check and see if there's opportunity for even more reuse if you've missed something. Okay, so really any time in the process, whether it's initial planning for a migration, or you've already got budget, you're making the migration, and you want to have information, actionable information, either before you do the conversion or right after you do the conversion, or you've already done the conversion and you just want to check and make sure you haven't missed any opportunities for reuse. Okay. Next question.
Let's see. What about FrameMaker docs with text insets?
I'm sorry, FrameMaker docs with what?
Text insets.
Text insets. Okay, so anything that is text will be broken out at a paragraph level and analyzed. If you have, for instance, an image with a text layer over it where you're annotating an image, I don't believe it's going to make any real use of that. If you have tables, for instance, as long as you have paragraphs within cells and tables, it will consider those in the analysis.
Okay, there was another question about tables, but you just got that.
Okay.
There's also the topic of the recommended changes. Is there any guidance that goes into that, like from DCL, like rules to go by?
I'm trying to. I could interpret that question a number of ways. So I'm trying to understand.
Like when they've received the report, like how
right.
can they get some guidance in going about implementing a
yeah. So when we go through it, we'll give you at least an hour's worth of time, taking you through and making sure you understand the report. I think your subject matter experts, when they see the report, your folks that are knowledgeable about the content, will get it pretty quick. If you need some guidance, beyond just interpreting the report, and want some assistance in coming up with a plan to implement reuse, we can certainly help you with that on a consulting basis. The key is to, get good actionable information, and then decide, how you're going to act on it. And if you need assistance in acting on it, we can provide that assistance. Any other questions, Vincent?
That's all we've got. Oh, wait.
Well, those are some great questions. I'm sure there's a few more.
There's one more that just came in asking if the submitted files, do they come back with line numbers on them so they can compare it with the analysis?
I mean, like I said, if the input is already XML or SGML or HTML, the line numbers that we reference in the document thumbnail are the line numbers in the source files. But if it's FrameMaker or Word or InDesign or Quark, they would not marry up with the source documents. But again, you're going to have that document thumbnail. You're going to know which document it was found in, and you're going to know, pretty close to the exact location of where that is. And I think, your subject matter experts sitting there with the report and with the source document, I think they'll be able to navigate to that spot pretty quickly.
Okay.
Any other questions?
No, looks like that's it.
Okay. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining. And I've been watching how many were signed on, and pretty much everybody stayed for the whole session. So I'm glad I didn't bore you. I hope I piqued your interest. And please feel free to reach out to myself and my colleagues with any additional questions, or if you're interested in getting a quote for Harmonizer services, we'd be more than happy to help you. And thank you all once again for giving us an hour of your time today. Vincent?
Okay, thank you very much.